Hey, good day everyone. AR again from AR Performance Fitness. So today, this video is to share my weight loss journey with you all. A lot of you over the past several years have asked me, hey, what did you do? How did you transform yourself? Where is the rest of you? You've changed significantly. So I just wanted to take a minute or several minutes over here and share what I did. Some of this information may be helpful to you, may work for you if you try similar techniques. But I just want to clarify, I am not a medical expert. I am not a fitness professional, a fitness expert. Did a lot of research myself on what I'm gonna be communicating with you. But at the end of the day, my weight loss journey really started in 2018, in the mid of 2018. And at that time, I weighed between 225 pounds and 230 pounds. And I had a lot of fat on me. And today, just for context and just to give you where we're at, before we move forward with this video, I'm between 135 pounds and 140 pounds. So I lost roughly 85 to 90 pounds during that time. It did not happen overnight. It took a lot of consistency. It took a lot of discipline. It took a lot of adjusting my mindset. And it took a lot of me figuring out why I wanted to do this. So, again, I started in 2018. I started because of my family, primarily because of my daughter. And let me just tell you a little more about how that came about. At that time I had two kids. So I was going through pictures and, I got to a few pictures and I did not like the way I looked. And it was just looking at it with a different perspective, a different lens, and I was sort of amazed at how big I was becoming. And then I also have bad genetics from my side of the family. Obviously people are big and we're foodies, and just given my culture and my religion, a lot of events and conversations happen around food, and I was not very mindful on what I was eating, how much I was eating, and the consequences of it. So, exactly that, that was the first thing, figuring out, hey, I needed to do something. I need to take some actions. I need to put together a game plan. I did not know what that meant in detail, but I knew I needed to start. Even before 2018, I was going to the gym 3 to 4 times a week. So I had one side of the equation dialed in, but I was not managing the other side of the equation, which is watching how much I ate, what I ate, the nutritional side. And you all know the recipe. I'm not going to tell you anything that's rocket science here, right? In order to be healthy, you have to live a healthy lifestyle. You have to eat a healthy lifestyle. You have to work out. You have to move the body. Everyone knows the recipe, right? Eat in moderation. Don't overindulge yourself, become active, etc. And be consistent, right? So, with all that said, in 2018, I really decided to make an invest in myself. And I said, okay, let me start off with figuring out how much time I need. And, everyone knows there's 24 hours in a day. I invested 1 hour a day in myself. That's 4% of your workday, immaterial, right? And I think we all can find an hour, or collectively find an hour to figure out what we need to do to change. So that's how I started. And I started with the ketogenic diet. You can do a lot of research on it, but I targeted 65 to 70% of my nutritional needs to come from fat, 20 to 25 to come from protein, and the rest to come from carbs. And I did that for about 8 months. And during that 8-month period, I did not have any cheat meals. I did not have any bread. I did not have any grains. I did not have any pasta, any pizza, any ice cream, any cereal. And it was extremely hard, especially when, I'm with kids, I'm with family, I'm at special events. I stuck to my routine, my diet. I stuck to ordering vegetables or only eating meat. Maybe I varied the macros, meaning the fat and the proteins I ate, but generally speaking, I did not deviate or cheat the process because I wanted to change myself. I wanted to really see how far I could go, and it wasn't easy, as you all can imagine, especially when I have a lot of junk food at the house with the kids. We got muffins, cookies, snacks, chips, etc. You name it, right? So, that was the first part of the process. The second part was, okay, I needed to get more movement in. So I was very religious on getting 10,000 steps a day, which equates to roughly 5 miles a day. It was not all in one shot. And this is where I was saying, hey, I gotta invest and find 1 hour a day at least. And so maybe it was 15 minutes and I got 2,000 steps in. Maybe it was another 20 minutes at a different point in time and I got another 2,500 steps in. But I would track that religiously through applications on my watch and make sure, hell or high water, that I was getting my steps in. It did not matter if it was cold, windy, sunny, humid, raining, etc. If I was short on my goal, I would be very cognizant, hey, I gotta meet this target. Did that for the 8-month period. So the first month I lost about 7 pounds and I didn't really think much of it. And I reached out to some of you to get some information for guidance. And you all know who you are. So, kudos to you all for, just educating me along the way. But one of the hardest things I noticed with the ketogenic diet is figuring out the amount of calories you can eat while sticking with your macro requirements. So what I mean by that is it is a fat heavy diet. So if you're, one of the things I used to eat a lot was avocado oil or coconut oil or butter. And, just to give you an example, 3 tablespoons of coconut oil is roughly, 350 or 400 calories. And I was starting at the diet at 2,000 calories. How did I get there? I just picked a number, figured, hey, that's what many experts in the medical field, in the weight loss field say, that's what you gotta eat a day for a normal human being. So I said, why not? Let's just start there. But, I hadn't really eaten anything but just oil consumed 300 to 400 calories. And I was using MyFitnessPal as my primary means of tracking what I ate to make sure that I don't deviate from the 2,000 calories a day. And, so the first month lost 7 pounds, the second month lost another 6 to 7 pounds. And I figured it was initially water weight. But once I saw the decline in my weight, you get happy, you get satisfied. You're like, okay, this is working. And I think that's an ego booster, right? And we see results, especially positive results, we want to continue going. And I'm like, okay, this is sort of easy. It's getting easy because, at first, it was not easy because you're eating the same topics, same food for the most part. Was pre-planning my meals, right? Saying I'm gonna eat chicken, I'm gonna eat salmon, I'm gonna eat beef with broccoli or cauliflower for the majority of the time. And, the meals are gonna be similar for the most part. So, you make a large batch and you distribute them in containers and you have your meals for the day. And then for the week. So, that's, what I was doing. So, did the ketogenic diet, started off with 2,000 calories, tracked my steps, 10,000 a day, and then, used MyFitnessPal. And this is how sort of focused I was on calorie management and macro nutrition management. Let's just say I would put in what I wanted to eat or what I was about to eat into the application, MyFitnessPal, before I actually ate it, to see what the outcome was and how much calories I absorbed or would absorb, and to figure out if I wanted to have a meal at that time or as much of a meal. And you'll be surprised, right? If you want to have a bowl of yogurt with some berries, and put in a splash of MCT oil to get the fat in. If that's like 400 calories, I'll ask myself, do I want to have as big of a portion or a smaller portion? And I drank a lot of water with that process, maybe 10 to 12 cups a day. So that's how, focused I was on losing the weight. So after about 2 months, I dialed it back to 1,800 calories. And, after about month 3, I hit a stall, right? I lost another 7 pounds. So, started off at 220, right at, roughly after 3 months in, I'm down at 200. I'm like, okay, my clothes are getting a little baggy. Losing some weight. And this is good, right? And then I start to plateau. And, doing some more research, I figured out how to adjust my calorie intake, adjust my macros. So then I went hardcore and did extreme calorie deficit with the ketogenic diet and stayed around 1,500 calories. Long story short, at the end of 8 months, I got to roughly, I think the lowest I hit was 164 pounds, but I stabilized at 172 pounds. And I was like, wow. So, that was pretty remarkable for me. Again, not, spending a lot of time in the gym during that time. It was just getting the steps in. So then I asked myself, okay, what can I do to maintain this? So I followed the ketogenic lifestyle for the next 3 years, from basically 2019 to past COVID, but in variation. Maybe I didn't always get to the 65-70% fat, but I got to like 50% of it. Then obviously I did have a lot of cheat days. I had a lot of cheat meals. I rewarded myself for my success. And I never got, back to my original weight. I varied between 175 pounds and 190 pounds over the next 3 or 4 years. But then I decided, okay, what do I gotta do to even take this a step further? I wanted to work on body recomposition because I had lost a lot of fat, but I had not defined and toned up my body, right? So what you see here today is a lot of work and effort in the gym. And because of other family needs, I needed to set up a gym space in my residence. It's obviously economical for me to go to the gym. You pay anywhere from $20 a month to $100 a month, depending on the fitness facility. But just given some other needs I have, or my family has, I have to be at the house. And I know it's not financially feasible for everyone to have the amount of equipment and gym equipment and items that I do. I get that. But I did not have all this when I started off. But I did have the financial means to invest in a lot of this, a lot of the equipment and items that you see around and in my videos. They are thousands of dollars. But I started off with, a pair of, adjustable dumbbells, maybe $300-400, a workout bench, $100, a spin bike, maybe $500. And then, I think I had another piece of equipment, a row machine, $200-300. So maybe invested all in equipment wise at that time was about $1,000 or $1,200, which is nothing in the grand scheme of things, right? We're spending that amount just in dinners and lavish parties every now and then, right? So, but the other item was consistency and discipline, right? And make sure, okay, I got the equipment, now let's make sure I use it. So in the COVID environment, working at home, I was very religious on, doing more cardio. So I started off with the spin bike, 15 minutes a day, gradually worked my way up to an hour a day. Sometimes I couldn't do an hour in one setting, but I did multiple attempts, multiple rides, and I got there. That with the diet, being very focused again on what I ate, how much I ate. I would try not to eat past 9 or 10 p.m. I would try to have small portions or manageable portions. Even when I resumed working in the office, returning back to the office. Even when I travel, I am very cognizant on what I'm eating. I'm very focused on when I'm traveling to have my workout. I have my workout gear with me, meaning workout clothes. I am super selective now when I'm booking a hotel to see the quality of the fitness room that they have, which is not a item I really considered as much before. You know, you consider location, you consider proximity to transportation, you consider proximity to your work location, you consider, you know, what's around it from an entertainment standpoint. But I also made, you know, the quality of the fitness facility as a primary criteria in my selection of a hotel. So, you know, that's how seriously I started taking things. Then I said, okay, I was able to find an hour, which is 4% of my day, from working out, you know, spending time on the spin bike and, you know, maybe getting some dumbbell workout in. But, you know, really when I moved to the Carolinas from Northern Virginia in the DC area, I really wanted to tone up. And again, I had a lot of loose skin. But doing the keto diet, I felt like, and I knew I had lost a lot of muscle. And as you all know, when you age, you need to maintain muscle just for durability and survivability. So starting basically in 2023, you know, I started building out this gym in my garage, and I started spending a lot of time here. You know, I tried to get, you started off with an hour, like I told you all. Then I moved it up to 90 minutes, and I started adding a lot of strength training. And basically in, you know, 2024, you know, towards the end and the majority of 2025, you know, there's many days I spend 2.5, 3 hours here, even on the weekends. I trained aggressively 7 days a week, and I know that's not easy. Sometimes you may ask or may say, hey, he's just bullshitting or he's exaggerating. Again, you know, this is me telling my story. You know, my family jokes with me, says you live in the garage, you're always into your workout, your workouts become your number one priority, you are super obsessed. You know, I'm not gonna say that I'm not pleased with the results. I continue to do new things to test myself, and last year, you know, I had to do even more. Some of you may know I had a leg injury and I have a torn meniscus, so I was forced to do even more physical therapy and working on strength training because of my medical condition. So that gave me more of a means and need to focus on myself. And, you know, just given my kids' needs, I have 2 kids on the spectrum that require a lot of attention, and, you know, they're not independent, and it requires me to provide, obviously, attention to them, but they need a lot more attention than a normal kid. And I hate using that word because, you know, it's hard to define normal, right? But you know, that's one of the reasons I have an in-home gym, because I can get called away to assist with childcare needs. But it also reminds me that I need to be physically able to provide for them. And there's a lot of things that you would have to do that I just wouldn't be able to do if I was as heavy of an individual. Can't run after them, can't chase them, can't play with them. I guess you can, but not to the level that you want. And also I look at my childhood. My dad was a very big guy, still is, and I don't feel like we bonded as strongly as we could from an activity standpoint. So, you know, with some of those items lurking in my mind, I wanted to do things to constantly change myself. And, you know, I joke in some of my videos that I got skinny legs, and that is true. But, you know, for the past 12 to 18 months, I really had to focus a lot of my exercise on my upper body. And and I couldn't do a lot of heavy exercises with heavy weights on my legs because of my injuries, right? And so, I couldn't even bend down. I couldn't even do a squat, a dumbbell squat. But as I'm recovering now, I'm trying to build more strength. And this time on my leg injury, my knee injury particularly, I went with the non-surgical option at the recommendation of the medical professionals. So now I get to work more on the legs. But again, went from 230 pounds to 130-ish pounds, roughly a 90-pound decline, and it didn't happen overnight. And now it's part of my lifestyle, right? It started with the ketogenic diet. Now I eat whatever I want, when I want, but I'm here in the gym at least 5 to 6 days a week. I still try to get an hour in a day. When I do overindulge, my body just tells me, hey, I need to get back in here. And I know how quickly I could go back to the other side. So, here's the other thing that I did a few years ago, maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. I decided to clean out my closet. And, I had things from small to extra, extra large, right? And so, obviously it takes up a lot of space. But I decided to stick with a size that I'm at, that fits me, today, plus minus, let's say 15 pounds. So what that gives me is in one category, one size for what I need. So I decided to just fully donate the largest clothes, give away what I can to people in need. And now when I'm, at a point where I feel like, okay, I'm buying things that are snug basically, right? So that are perfectly fitting me. So if I'm eating too much, and if a suit or a shirt doesn't fit me, or if my pants are getting tight, it just reminds me, hey, I gotta make an adjustment to my diet, or I gotta work out more, or a combination, right? So that's how seriously I've taken things, but just from a combination of everything I've talked about in the 20 plus minutes that I've been going around on talking, started off with my family and my child, just me having some recognition I needed to change myself from looking at pictures, implementing a plan, starting with a diet, and I heard all the noise in the background, right? We all hear it, right? Whenever we try to do something, oh, it's gonna be short term, you're gonna get back to it, you're gonna gain weight, etc. And just let it be. Your actions really define who you are. So, I started with one diet, altered with variations of that diet, stuck with it, started off with walking and getting steps in, and then, increasing the level of movements with, using the spin bike, and then just started going hardcore strength training. And I added a lot of supplements along the way in terms of vitamin D, vitamin B+, creatine, iron, but everything that is over the counter available. So, did that, and so now it's become an obsession, but I just love the output, and hopefully this helps you, encourage you to do something different. And it does take time, right? It's not gonna happen overnight. So just again, I just wanted to share my story, and hopefully it helps anyone out there. Thank you.